We all go through periods where life gets in the way of our guitar practice. So in this episode of the Guitar Blog Insider, we're going to run through some simple, easy to apply tips to help get you more motivated and into practicing your guitar every day. Well, before we get going, I wanted to tell you a quick story because it's a cool story and it's kind of motivating and all that. Around 4 months ago, I started working with a new student on Skype. He's 62 years of age. He likes to learn, music by some of the classic blues players, in particular, Lightning Hopkins. And some of that stuff is working well for him because he is a beginner. But, his job through the years also had him using his hands a lot, and they're fairly stiff. He's got some problems with, being able to play sometimes. But he's not letting that slow him down. He wanted me to be very clear when he first started. He wanted to know how long it's really going to take him to get going. And I told him, I didn't lie to him. I told him straight up that, you're probably going to have to practice for about 1,000 hours just to get the basic skills down, and then another 1,000 after that to gain really good proficiency over the muscle movements. And if he really wanted to get good, he's probably looking at another 1,000 hours after that to really burn it all in. And when I told him that, I thought he might even quit or something, but instead, what he said to me was, well, that's around 8 to 10 hours in a week, and as long as I can fit in the time and I'm still alive in 6 years, I figured that I'll be able to play some fairly good guitar. And I thought, that's a great answer, and that's a real attitude of someone who's, kind of like, the winner attitude. But fair enough, he is finding it hard to be able to practice guitar for more than the goal of the 6 hours a week. He's keeping a logbook, and his first goal is to reach 200 hours. The good news is he just crossed over 100 hours. And one of the main reasons I wanted to tell you that story is because how you feel and the attitude you're going to have and the beliefs that you're going to have inside you about practicing, they're going to be very, very important in getting you motivated enough to continuously practicing guitar, picking it up every day, that kind of thing. So think of it this way. One of the most important feelings about practicing guitar is to feel like you're making the investment. You need to get into this with some finish lines set into the future, places that you can make it to and then cross over. And without those finish lines, your practice and your motivation overall can often actually slow you down to a crawl if you don't keep all this up. Now, when any guitar student begins having those kinds of feelings, that they're playing better and better over time, they begin getting more and more motivated. And while the motivation will be different, from one player to the next, it will still be there. Some players want to learn theory, others want to just jam to their favorite songs. But one thing is consistent: every time a practicing guitar player picks up their guitar, they always incorporate some new theory and some new ideas, and they in turn will naturally get better and better. My 62-year-old Skype student proves that you're never too old to enjoy learning and playing the guitar. The next thing I want to discuss is focus and quiet time, and time with just you, your guitar, the music stand, and some paper up on it, and no computers, no social media, none of that stuff. Because when you sit down to practice guitar, you want to separate yourself from everything, especially the electronic world. No social media, no phones, no tablets, no video games, of course, all that stuff. It should be off, in my opinion. You only have on maybe what directly pertains to your guitar studies. Anything else can be a terrible distraction that can easily take you away from getting what you want to have accomplished. Now, when I looked at creating a guitar course and putting it online, obviously it was a huge decision-making process to do this. It was a massive project. But one of the reasons that I took more time and designed it the way I did because I wanted to have a members area where students could actually download handouts. I checked out a lot of other guitar lesson sites, and there was really no way to download proper, concise handouts in a very sequential and orderly lesson plan way. And I think it's important because, to sit all the time in front of a computer screen, I just don't believe it's the same thing as just sitting quietly with some printed handouts on a music screen in front of you. And that's why I designed my course the way it is designed. I wanted people to focus on music away from a computer, and then if they needed feedback off of a video clip that it performed a certain exercise, that was great. You could do that quickly, but then shut it off and go back to your piece of paper and just work on the handout, because with that type of routine, you have much better focus and clarification of what's going on, and you can really zone in to what needs to be done to get your playing up to a much higher level. And that really focused learning time time. It occurs best in a very quiet and focused period between just, you, the paper, and your guitar and that music stand in front of you. That's where you're really going to get the best out of your dedication time and, of course, the best out of the feedback from as you practice more and you develop your skills to higher levels. Well, the next area I need to discuss is the training of your fingers to a really high level of skill. The left and right hand finger technique, it's probably one of the most important areas of development that a guitarist can make as a regular part of their study time. The exercises that a guitarist adds alongside of their scales and arpeggios will really help to develop their hand coordination up to levels where very little thought needs to go into each finger movement. So practicing guitar technique studies that involve picking patterns, moving through different rhythms, doing string crossing techniques, and of course working on several non-musical drills like the chromatic studies, for instance. All those things are going to do wonders for going a long way to improving overall technique. And when a student adds guitar technique into the daily routine, they'll notice right away there's going to be big changes that are going to start to happen with regard to playing ability, synchronization, the ability to match left and right hand movements. It's all going to occur so that big changes wind up happening with a very rapid pace to them as well. When it comes to online guitar lessons, there's no place better than CreativeGuitarStudio.com. General membership to the site is always free, and paid memberships to access our step-by-step beginner, intermediate, and advanced guitar programs are offered in reasonable monthly and annual packages. Skype lessons are also available if you need more specific instruction one-on-one to discuss the finer details of your guitar playing. Sign up today at CreativeGuitarStudio.com. Next, let's get into this idea of practicing time, how long to practice, how to mix your subjects, all that kind of stuff. Students who create a practicing plan that includes multiple objectives to keep their study time more proactive will do a lot better than students who just sit down with no plan in mind and no concept for, let's say, an hour and just, putter around. For example, let's say you started with scales, you did that for 5 minutes, and then you check that off and move on to finger picking, did that for a few minutes, switch over to maybe doing some blues licks that you want to learn, and you spend 5, 6, 7 minutes there, then switch over to doing some songs, and maybe you spend 10 minutes or so there. That kind of broken, short time frame work is going to help any student cross through a lot of areas of playing, and this is not only going to make the study time feel less stressful, but it'll keep your mind a lot more alert. So, if you take a student, let's say, practices for 30 minutes, but divides their time into these small 3, 5, maybe 10-minute segments, the comprehension and the alertness that they're going to have during that practice period is going to be much higher, it's going to be much better practice, and the information will actually be retained longer. Now, the fact that there's a shorter period of time kind of freaks a few people out when I first try to get my students going on these ideas. They seem kind of bewildered why such short time frames would work. But it encourages a student, once they start doing it, to zone in on material a lot better, because the attention span is shorter, everything else gets to a higher peak. So muscle memory, the motor skills, that improves more. As we spend shorter, more focused time frames on subjects, our overall focus in those time frames stays at a much higher level. So you want to always try to maintain some discipline, of course, with your practice period. Have a timer. I usually have an egg timer that I use, or the timer that's located on my phone or something like that. But the biggest factor toward perfect practice is always going to come down to consistency. So you want the consistency to be there, and you want to run your daily rehearsals in a very organized way. If you use these short time frames and you use something like an egg timer or the stopwatch feature on your phone or something, it's going to make a big difference in how the level of focus is at while you're doing all your rehearsing. Well, while most of us would like to play guitar every day, the reality is that there's just so many other things on our to-do list generally that we sometimes end up pushing away time to practice for, substitution for other things we got to do. Unfortunately, there'll be days where you just don't practice at all, but what you want to move to in that motivation end is that first step. And having a practice week where you have a schedule going on, things change, and you've got these time frames that you're working within, and you've got everything organized, and you make it through that first week in this new model of practice. Because once you make it through that first period, and you realize what an advantage you have in doing that, it's going to snowball into a month, and then it's going to be a year, and then you're going to really notice some incredible changes in not just how your playing is going, but of course how you feel about jumping into practice every day. You're going to be more motivated, and you're going to feel much more desire to go and grab the guitar all the time. You just never never know until you try this kind of situation out of these different practice scenarios and you experience it and you start seeing results and that work best for you. Because once you start to notice the effects of these study changes, I think you're going to become hooked on them. You're going to really like the new practice routine situation, and your playing is going to evolve right along with it. So try it out. I think it's going to make a big difference for you. And of course, leave me some feedback in the comments section. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on the topic below in the comments. And that's it for now. Thanks for your time. We'll catch up again next week on my other channel for another episode of the Guitar Blog Insider. I've got 25 years experience teaching guitar and have written a well-organized step-by-step guitar course. Head over to my website at creativeguitarstudio.com and sign up for a free membership today. Join the thousands of members worldwide who have already enrolled. There's no need to try learning the guitar on your own. Let me help you become the best guitar player that you can be.